If you think 2026 and 2027 will be quiet years for the gaming industry, let me stop you right there. I've put together 35 AAA games coming over the next 2 years. Massive budgets, next-gen engines, and ambitions aimed straight at the future. Legendary franchises, brand new worlds, and projects that already feel like events, not just releases.
Not for me.
The titlet of fire.
Divinity marks the next major chapter in Larian Studios' iconic RPG franchise, and was officially unveiled at the Game Awards 2025 as the studio's most ambitious project to date. This is not a remaster or a small-scale sequel, but a full-scale evolution of the series, described as Larian's biggest game ever, with scope and complexity potentially surpassing even Baldur's Gate 3. Early teaser material points toward a dark fantasy world steeped in ritualistic imagery and heavy atmosphere, suggesting a return to the franchise's roots while pushing its systems further than ever before. The game is being developed using Larian's proprietary technology, an internal framework refined through years of RPG design, allowing for deep player choice, systemic interactions, and richly reactive storytelling. The Witcher 4 signals the beginning of a bold new chapter for the legendary fantasy RPG saga, ushering the series into a fresh era under the stewardship of CD Projekt Red and the power of Unreal Engine 5. This time, the spotlight fully shifts to Ciri as the main protagonist, placing her at the center of the narrative as she ventures into unexplored regions of the continent, carving her own path through a world that promises to be deeper, more expansive, and more reactive than ever before. The open world is being reimagined with richer environmental detail, more complex systems, and refined combat and RPG mechanics designed to build on everything the series has learned so far. A technical demo showcased during Unreal Engine presentations offered an early glimpse at what this future might look like, highlighting cutting-edge visuals, dense world geometry, advanced lighting, and smooth performance potential on PlayStation 5 hardware, all while making it clear that the project remains in early development.
The Chosen One! His tradition!
Valor Mortis is an upcoming first-person action Souls-like from the creators of Ghost Runner, plunging players into a dark and twisted alternate version of Napoleonic Europe, where history has rotted into something far more sinister. You step into the role of a fallen soldier brought back from death, his resurrection tainted by a mysterious plague that both curses and empowers him with unnatural abilities. This grim rebirth becomes the foundation for a brutal journey through corrupted battlefields where disciplined formations and familiar uniforms clash with grotesque horrors and supernatural forces. Combat leans heavily into punishing melee encounters, demanding precision, timing, and mastery, while dark powers granted by the plague add a supernatural edge to every confrontation. Control Resonant stands as the official sequel to Remedy Entertainment's acclaimed paranormal thriller Control, and it represents a significant evolution for the franchise in both scope and ambition. Revealed at the Game Awards 2025, the game moves beyond the claustrophobic confines of the oldest house and into a distorted, paranaturally scarred version of Manhattan where reality itself is unstable and unseen, forces are actively tearing the world apart. This time, the story places you in the role of Dylan Faden, the brother of original protagonist Jesse Faden, as he steps into the center of a cosmic conflict that threatens to unravel existence. Armed with new supernatural abilities and a distinctive shape-shifting melee weapon known as the Aberrant, Dylan must confront forces that defy logic and physics alike. Marvel's Wolverine is the long-awaited single-player action game from Insomniac Games, the studio behind Marvel's Spider-Man, and it promises a raw, ferocious, and deeply character-driven take on one of Marvel's most iconic heroes. Officially confirmed to launch exclusively on PlayStation 5 in fall 2026, the game centers on Logan and delivers the fast, brutal combat that defines Wolverine, pairing visceral, claw-based action with a darker, more grounded narrative tone. This is a story-driven experience that digs into the grit, pain, and violence at the core of the character, pulling no punches as it sends Wolverine across a globe-spanning journey filled with danger and moral conflict. Along the way, familiar figures from the X-Men universe, including characters like Mystique and Omega Red, are set to appear, shaping a narrative that balances personal struggle with high-stakes encounters.
I'm Wolverine.
Exodus is shaping up to be one of the most ambitious science fiction RPGs in years, positioning itself as a spiritual successor to Mass Effect while embracing a heavier, more grounded take on hard sci-fi and cinematic storytelling. Developed by Archetype Entertainment, a studio founded by veteran BioWare creators, including James Olin and Drew Karpyshyn, the game places narrative depth and player choice at its core. You play as June Aslan, a genetically enhanced salvager operating on the fringes of humanity in deep space, who becomes entangled in a morally complex struggle for the survival of the human race against highly evolved enemies known as the Celestials. The story explores themes of time dilation, interstellar travel, and the devastating consequences of decisions made across vast distances and timelines.
Salvaging scraps just to get by. And we will fight to protect it!
Gang of Dragon is a brand new action-adventure project from Nagoshi Studio, led by Toshihiro Nagoshi, the creative force behind the Yakuza and Like a Dragon franchise, and it immediately wears that legacy with confidence while carving out its own identity. Officially revealed at the Game Awards 2025, the game presents itself as a gritty evolution of the crime drama brawler, grounded in raw physicality, street-level conflict, and a distinctly cinematic tone. The debut trailer teases a world steeped in urban realism, evoking Kabukicho-style chaos through brutal bar fights, explosive street confrontations, and tightly framed, visceral encounters that emphasize impact and momentum. Every punch, throw, and clash feels deliberate and weighty, reinforcing a sense of grounded violence rather than spectacle for spectacle's sake.
On your feet, now!
OD is the enigmatic new project from Hideo Kojima and Kojima Productions, developed in partnership with Xbox Game Studios and positioned as one of the most mysterious titles currently in production. Described as a horror-leaning, deeply immersive cinematic experience, the game is built around Kojima's fascination with fear, psychology, and emotional endurance, with the creator himself stating that the goal is to test the player's fear threshold in ways games rarely attempt. Though concrete details remain scarce, a teaser trailer and surrounding leaks suggest a strong emphasis on atmosphere, tension, and unsettling realism, all powered by Unreal Engine 5 to achieve lifelike visuals and an oppressive sense of presence. Rather than traditional horror conventions, OD appears to explore discomfort, perception, and psychological unease, blurring the line between player and experience in a way that feels experimental, intimate, and unmistakably Kojima in its ambition. Tomb Raider: Legacy of Atlantis is officially revealed as a full reimagining of the original 1996 Tomb Raider, rebuilt from the ground up in Unreal Engine 5 and announced at the Game Awards 2025 as a bold return to Lara Croft's very first adventure. This is not a simple remaster, but a comprehensive modernization that seeks to honor the spirit of the original while expanding and refining nearly every aspect of the experience for modern audiences. Environments ranging from dense jungles to ancient ruins and forgotten tombs are larger, richer, and more detailed, with enhanced traversal, reworked combat, and reimagined puzzles designed to feel fluid and cinematic without losing their classic identity. The iconic quest for the Scion artifact returns with revamped mechanics and presentation, weaving exploration, danger, and discovery into a more immersive narrative flow.
I didn't know then. to uncover the secrets of Atlantis.
Halo Campaign Evolved is a ground-up remake of the original Halo, Combat Evolved, rebuilt using Unreal Engine 5 and designed to go far beyond a visual overhaul. Classic missions are reimagined with high-fidelity 4K visuals, modern lighting, updated animations, enhanced controls, and expanded level design that brings familiar battlefields to life with greater scale and detail. At the same time, the remake introduces new bonus missions and expanded narrative elements that were never part of the 2001 release, giving longtime fans fresh content while preserving the core identity of the original campaign. The result is a version of Halo that feels both faithful and revitalized, bridging generations of players.
We'll keep them busy as long as we can.
Fire Team Charlie, we're on our way.
Somebody order a warthog.
Atomic Heart 2 is the official sequel to Atomic Heart, continuing and expanding its retro-futuristic Soviet-inspired science fiction universe through the power of Unreal Engine 5. Building on the foundations of the first game, the sequel scales the experience outward to a global level, broadening its world while deepening its systems. Larger and more diverse environments support more varied combat scenarios, enhanced abilities, and expanded role-playing mechanics that offer greater player freedom and customization. The game leans further into its distinctive blend of surreal technology, ideological tension, and explosive action, refining its mechanics while preserving the strange, unsettling tone that defined the original. While a concrete release date has yet to be announced, Atomic Heart 2 is positioned as a more ambitious continuation of its predecessor, aiming to push both its narrative and gameplay into bolder, more expansive territory. Replaced is a cyberpunk action platformer that has steadily built anticipation over the years, and now finally stands with a confirmed release, ready to deliver its striking vision of a broken future. You play as Reach, an artificial intelligence forcibly trapped inside a human body, struggling to survive in an alternate version of 1980s America, where nuclear devastation, systemic corruption, and social decay have reshaped everyday life into something bleak and unforgiving. The game unfolds through cinematic 2.5D platforming, blending fluid movement, precise combat, and environmental puzzles into tightly choreographed sequences that feel both mechanical and emotional. Every location drips with atmosphere, from rain-soaked streets to decaying industrial zones, reinforced by a synth-heavy soundtrack that amplifies the dystopian mood. Star Citizen Squadron 42 is the long-awaited single-player campaign set within the expansive Star Citizen universe, crafted as a cinematic space combat and narrative-driven experience that has been in development for well over a decade. Players step into the role of a rookie pilot enlisted in the United Empire of Earth Navy's elite 42nd Squadron, thrust into a galaxy-spanning conflict filled with pirates, alien threats, and political tension. The experience blends intense space dogfighting with on-foot combat, story-driven missions, and character interactions that place heavy emphasis on immersion and choice. Relationships formed throughout the campaign and decisions made during key moments are designed to carry narrative weight, reinforcing the sense that you are an active participant in a living military drama rather than a passive observer.
Just to craft an experience that we can be really proud of.
So that's why I figured I'd get a job trying in security, because that's
In the Battle of Vega, you can look them in the eye and say,
Saros is a high-profile action title from Housemarque, the studio behind Returnal, and it stands as one of the most anticipated PlayStation 5 exclusives currently on the horizon, built entirely in Unreal Engine 5. The game places you in the role of Arjun Devraj, a Soltari enforcer sent to investigate the mysterious planet Carcosa, a world permanently trapped beneath the shadow of an eclipse. Combat blends Housemarque's signature bullet hell intensity with third-person action, demanding constant movement, sharp reflexes, and mastery over overwhelming enemy encounters. Central to the experience is a defensive shield system that absorbs incoming fire and converts it into devastating counterattacks, rewarding aggressive, skillful play. Progression introduces a major evolution from Returnal's roguelike structure, allowing players to permanently upgrade gear across runs, ensuring that each defeat still pushes you forward.
I will make everything
Here. We've lost people. There's no way to get home, and you...
and I will find you.
Onimusha Way of the Sword marks the long-awaited return of Capcom's legendary action series after nearly 2 decades, resurrected with modern technology through the RE engine and scheduled for release in 2026. Set in a dark fantasy interpretation of feudal Japan, the game centers on intense, deliberate sword combat defined by precise timing, parries, and lethal counterattacks against demonic Genma forces. You take on the role of a legendary samurai loosely inspired by the historical figure Miyamoto Musashi, wielding the supernatural Oni gauntlet to absorb souls, unleash devastating powers, and stand against grotesque horrors that stalk the land. Each duel is framed as a deadly test of skill, blending visceral action with atmospheric tension in beautifully rendered environments steeped in myth and menace.
Cheers! And after everything you and your awful kind put him through, something to cheer you.
Crimson Desert is Pearl Abyss' ambitious open-world action RPG, built on the studio's proprietary Black Space engine and designed as a standalone single-player epic set in a brutal, war-torn fantasy world. The story unfolds across the vast continent of Pywall, where constant conflict has shattered kingdoms and left survival hanging by a thread. You play as Cliff McDuff, a hardened mercenary navigating the aftermath of devastation while attempting to endure, rebuild, and carve meaning from chaos. The game blends dynamic melee combat with expansive exploration and a wide range of side activities, encouraging players to lose themselves in a living world filled with rival factions, towering bosses, and richly detailed environments. Once connected to the lore of Black Desert Online, Crimson Desert now stands entirely on its own, focusing on a grounded narrative, personal struggle, and large-scale warfare to create an immersive fantasy journey driven by action, atmosphere, and discovery.
Your fight. In the end, all will come together as one. We fight for the
Fatekeeper is an upcoming first-person role-playing game built in Unreal Engine 5 that places sword and sorcery combat at the heart of a reactive, handcrafted dark fantasy world. From the moment you step into its ruins, relic-filled landscapes, and hostile territories, the game emphasizes player choice and mechanical depth, allowing combat style and character progression to shape every encounter. Melee fighting is designed to feel weighty and responsive, with precise strikes, blocks, and movement blending seamlessly with spellcasting and magical abilities. Whether you lean toward raw physical power, agile close-quarters combat, or devastating sorcery, the progression systems are built to reinforce your chosen path. Exploration plays a key role, drawing you into ancient locations filled with danger and mystery, while encounters with formidable foes test both skill and strategy.
It's not war. This is a cleanse. The purge. We haven't much time.
The Godslayer is an ambitious open-world action RPG from Pythia Games, developed in Unreal Engine 5 and set within a sprawling steampunk-inspired world shaped by divine catastrophe. You play as Cheng, an Elemancer gifted with control over elemental forces including fire, water, earth, metal, and wood, in a society forever altered by an apocalyptic event known as the God Fall. In the aftermath, godlike beings called Celestials have risen to dominate the world, reshaping civilizations and power structures in their wake. Combat is built around elemental interactions, encouraging players to combine abilities creatively as they clash with divine enemies and their followers. The world itself is vertical and expansive, filled with towering cities, intricate machinery, and political tension between factions struggling to survive under celestial rule. Tomb Raider Catalyst is a brand new entry in the iconic action-adventure franchise, officially announced at the Game Awards 2025 and built from the ground up in Unreal Engine 5. Rather than revisiting the past, this installment pushes the story forward, following Lara Croft years after the events of Tomb Raider. Underworld, as she faces the fallout of a mystical cataclysm that has reshaped the world. Ancient ruins long buried beneath the earth are suddenly exposed, unleashing forgotten forces and drawing rival treasure hunters into a dangerous race for power and knowledge. Lara must navigate expansive zones filled with environmental puzzles, hidden paths, and cinematic set pieces, while unraveling secrets that blur the line between myth and reality. Star Wars: Fate of the Old Republic is a new single-player action RPG set during the legendary Old Republic era, officially announced at the Game Awards 2025 and conceived as a spiritual successor to some of the most beloved narrative-driven games in the Star Wars universe. Directed by Casey Hudson, known for his work on Knights of the Old Republic and the original Mass Effect trilogy, the game centers on themes of choice, destiny, and moral consequence in a galaxy standing on the edge of transformation. Developed by Archanaut Studios in collaboration with Lucasfilm Games and powered by Unreal Engine 5, the experience is designed to immerse players in a richly detailed era defined by political tension, ancient conflicts, and personal decisions that shape the future. Grand Theft Auto 6 stands as the next monumental chapter in Rockstar Games' legendary open-world crime saga, officially confirmed to launch on November 19, 2026, following a delay intended to give the development team additional time to refine and polish every aspect of the experience. Built on Rockstar's proprietary Rage engine and releasing on PlayStation 5 and Xbox, the game transports players to the fictional state of Leonida, a vibrant, volatile region with Vice City at its heart, reimagined for a modern era. The story centers on dual protagonists Lucia Caminos and Jason Duval, whose lives intertwine within a sprawling crime narrative that explores ambition, loyalty, and survival in a world driven by excess and corruption.
Well, look who's back.
Woochi the Wayfarer is an upcoming fantasy action adventure inspired by a classic Korean folktale, reimagined through a modern lens and brought to life in Unreal Engine 5. Developed by Lore Vault and announced as part of Nexon's upcoming slate, the game draws deeply from myth and tradition, centering on a Taoist scholar gifted with magical abilities and bound by ancient lore. The world promises a visually striking blend of folklore and fantasy, where combat and storytelling are tightly woven into the fabric of the setting, emphasizing mysticism, cultural identity, and heroic struggle. Solasta 2 continues the legacy of tactical, party-based role-playing established by Solasta, Crown of the Magister, expanding its scope and presentation through the power of Unreal Engine 5. Scheduled to enter early access on PC on March 12, 2026, the sequel retains its foundation in Dungeons & Dragons. Inspired turn-based combat while enhancing visuals, narrative delivery, and overall immersion. Players lead a party of adventurers across the mysterious land of Neokos, uncovering ancient legacies and navigating a world shaped by looming threats and hidden histories. The story introduces the enigmatic Shadwin as a central danger, while character relationships, decision-making, and tactical positioning remain core to the experience.
Never forget the bonds that tie the six.
What an interesting family you must have.
No Law is a story-driven, open-world FPS and RPG revealed at the Game Awards 2025 by Neon Giant, the studio behind The Ascent, and it immediately establishes a bleak, cyber-noir vision of the future. Powered by Unreal Engine 5, the game takes place in Port Desire, a neon-drenched metropolis where social order has collapsed, and the concept of law exists only as a memory. Players assume the role of Gray Harker, an ex-military veteran whose attempt at a quiet life is violently interrupted, pulling him back into a city ruled by corruption, factions, and desperation. Gameplay blends first-person shooting with RPG progression and meaningful narrative choice, allowing players to approach situations through stealth, hacking, or overwhelming firepower.
But desire is a fickle mistress. The city won't let me go. It won't forget my name.
Project Tal is an ambitious open-world action RPG rooted deeply in Korean mythology and folklore, developed by Madden Gine and published by We Made Max, and built entirely in Unreal Engine 5. Early footage reveals a richly detailed fantasy world inspired by traditional Tal masks and mythic symbolism, blending sweeping landscapes with cinematic action and intense combat encounters. Players face massive mythical creatures in battles that emphasize fluid movement, combo-driven combat, and strategic timing, while a dynamic companion system allows NPC allies to join the fight, each bringing unique abilities and distinct personalities. The game also introduces mechanics that allow players to climb enormous enemies and exploit their weaknesses, reinforcing a sense of scale and danger in every encounter. Blood of Message is a narrative-driven action-adventure developed by 24 Entertainment, a NetEase Games studio, and marks the company's first major single-player project, built in Unreal Engine 5 with a strong focus on historical storytelling and emotional weight. Set in ancient China during the late Tang Dynasty in 848 AD, the game places you in the role of a messenger traveling alongside his young son during the chaos of the Shazhou Uprising. What begins as a dangerous delivery quickly becomes a harrowing journey across thousands of Lai, carrying a vital message toward the imperial capital of Chang'an through hostile territories and unforgiving landscapes. Gameplay blends third-person action, stealth, and survival mechanics, emphasizing careful movement, limited resources, and tense encounters rather than constant combat. The story leans heavily into themes of family, honor, sacrifice, and cultural identity, grounding its sweeping historical backdrop in deeply personal stakes. First Light is a brand new James Bond origin story, developed by IO Interactive, the creators of Hitman, and powered by the studio's proprietary Glacier engine to deliver a sleek, cinematic espionage experience. This standalone narrative introduces players to a young, unproven James Bond at the very beginning of his career, before he earns the legendary 00 status, placing emphasis on growth, discipline, and the formation of his iconic skill set. Missions unfold across a globe-spanning journey filled with stealth-driven infiltration, gadget-based problem-solving, high-speed car chases, and tense action sequences that capture the essence of classic spy fiction. The game balances player freedom with authored storytelling, encouraging creativity in how objectives are approached while maintaining a strong narrative through line. Ontos is an upcoming sci-fi mystery thriller from Frictional Games, the studio behind Soma and Amnesia, developed using their new proprietary HPL4 engine to support dense environments and complex narrative systems. Announced at the Game Awards 2025, the game transports players to the eerie, repurposed lunar hotel Samsara, a sprawling and unsettling location orbiting the moon where memory, truth, and perception constantly blur. You play as Aditi Amani, an engineer drawn to Samsara by a cryptic message from her estranged father, setting off a journey that begins as a personal search and gradually unfolds into something far more disturbing and philosophical. Exploration and puzzle solving are tightly interwoven with moral choice, forcing players to confront unsettling questions and consequences as the story progresses.
Play your father's game. Push the very limits. Surely a question without an answer. It inspired him to grant wishes.
Who's there?
Reanimal is a survival horror adventure from Tarsier Studios, the creators of Little Nightmares and Little Nightmares 2, and it carries forward the studio's signature blend of haunting atmosphere, emotional storytelling, and unsettling imagery. Built in Unreal Engine 5, the game casts players as a brother and sister trapped on a nightmarish island overrun by twisted creatures and environmental horrors as they search desperately for their missing friends. Exploration and puzzle solving form the backbone of the experience, with tension rising from vulnerability rather than power, as the environment itself feels hostile and alive. The game supports both single-player and cooperative play, allowing a second player to control the sibling either locally or online, while solo players are accompanied by an AI-controlled partner. Resident Evil Requiem is the 9th mainline entry in Capcom's legendary survival horror franchise. Built on the RE engine and designed to push the series' atmosphere and storytelling into darker, more emotionally charged territory. Set in the aftermath of the Raccoon City incident, the game introduces a new protagonist, Grace Ashcroft, an FBI analyst drawn into a chilling investigation tied directly to the city's buried secrets and lingering horrors. The experience balances classic survival horror tension with intense combat sequences, emphasizing resource management, exploration, and fear-driven pacing. Dual protagonists form a core structural element, with both Grace Ashcroft and Leon S. Kennedy playable in separate sections that offer contrasting gameplay styles, shifting between stealth-focused survival and more action-oriented combat.
Over here. FBI, what are you doing here?
Would you like to see what's hidden under the hood?
Don't do anything stupid.
Tides of Annihilation is an upcoming fantasy action-adventure from Eclipse Glow Games that fuses Arthurian legend with a haunting modern apocalypse, all brought to life through Unreal Engine 5. The game is set in a shattered post-invasion London, where familiar streets and landmarks lie fractured under the weight of an otherworldly catastrophe. You play as Gwendolyn, the last known survivor of the invasion, navigating a world where myth and reality bleed into one another as the ruins of modern civilization collide with legendary realms such as Avalon. The narrative centers on a desperate quest to locate the Holy Grail, a relic tied to the fate of what remains of the world, while uncovering the truth behind the invasion itself. Combat is defined by the ability to command spectral Knights of the Round Table, summoning and directing them in battle to overwhelm enemies and control the flow of encounters.
You will not escape justice!
The Expanse Osiris Reborn is a science fiction action RPG from Owlcat Games, set within the politically charged universe of The Expanse and inspired by both the novels and the television series. Built in Unreal Engine 5, the game places players in the role of a Pinkwater security mercenary navigating the volatile power struggle between Earth, Mars, and the Belt, where every decision can carry far-reaching consequences. Gameplay unfolds through third-person combat, zero-gravity movement, and story-driven missions that emphasize tactical positioning and adaptability in hostile environments. Narrative choice is a core pillar of the experience, shaping alliances, outcomes, and the fate of companions as the story branches in response to player decisions. Developers have openly embraced comparisons to the Mass Effect trilogy, highlighting companion relationships, moral dilemmas, and branching narrative paths as central elements.
No sound in combat. No vacuum, you feel more than Austiners do, but far less than in atmosphere.
But also be able to be reactive. But the fear is the same, becoming detached.
14 Years of Flames is an upcoming war-themed first-person shooter developed by a Chinese indie studio, focusing on a historically grounded and emotionally driven portrayal of the Second Sino-Japanese War, spanning from 1931 to 1945. Built in Unreal Engine 5, the game presents its story through the perspectives of 7 different characters, each offering a unique viewpoint on the conflict as players experience 16 key historical events across multiple fronts and environments. Rather than focusing solely on action, the game emphasizes narrative context, placing players directly inside pivotal battles and moments that shape the course of the war. Weapons, locations, and combat scenarios are recreated with an emphasis on authenticity, reinforcing a grounded and cinematic tone throughout the campaign. Designed as a single-player, story-driven shooter, 14 Years of Flames seeks to honor history through immersive storytelling, portraying the human cost of prolonged conflict while delivering intense, era-authentic combat experiences. Black Myth: Zhong is the next ambitious project from Game Science, the Chinese studio that rose to global prominence with Black Myth: Wukong, and it continues their deep dive into classical Chinese mythology through a dark cinematic action RPG lens. Officially unveiled with a teaser trailer at Gamescom 2025, the game introduces Zhong Kui as its central figure, a legendary ghost catcher from ancient folklore known for hunting demons and punishing evil spirits. At this stage, development is still in its very early phase, with the team actively shaping the core story, systems, and overall structure of the experience. No gameplay footage has been revealed yet, and there is currently no confirmed release date, reinforcing that the project remains in a formative state. What is known is that the game is planned as a single-player action RPG in the same general vein as Wukong, built around heavy mythological themes, intense atmosphere, and Souls-like inspired combat design. Resonance: A Plague Tale Legacy is a new action-adventure chapter set within the A Plague Tale universe. Developed by Asobo Studio and published by Focus Entertainment, and officially revealed during the Xbox Games Showcase. Serving as a prequel set roughly 15 years before the events of A Plague Tale Requiem, the game shifts focus to a brand new protagonist named Sophia, a fierce and determined young plunderer driven by a personal quest to uncover long-buried secrets connected to her past. The story unfolds across evocative and dangerous locations, including the enigmatic Minotaur's Island, where myth and reality intertwine. Gameplay blends combat, exploration, and puzzle solving, while introducing stronger mythological elements and adversaries inspired by legend alongside human enemies.